pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let's see, we'll start out with a look at our agenda this evening for approval. Any comments, adjustments? No? I move for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you. Public comments. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring the opportunity to address the board on any matter not on the agenda and over which it has jurisdiction. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Persons wishing to include their verbatim remarks in the official record shall submit same in writing. Members of the audience are asked to avoid engaging in any behavior that disrupts the orderly conduct of the meeting, and speakers are asked to state their name and address for the record prior to making a presentation. I don't have any requests for speaking tonight. Do we have anybody? Came in late? No? Okay. Minutes of October, our last meeting.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Accounts payable disbursements. Any discussion on that this evening? No? I move for approval.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Board meeting dates for 2017. We have a list that's provided in advance of every year, obviously. And I'd like to open this up for discussion this evening with considering some possible changes for next year. One possible change on these comments and these thoughts have come up over this past year. One suggestion or idea I'd like to put on the table is rather than 2 meetings a month, we go with 1 meeting a month, official meeting, board meeting, and then we continue committee meetings. And with committee meetings, set the committee meetings at a set schedule if necessary, if there are subjects for the committee. A couple of reasons for this suggestion has been brought up by others, is, including myself, is it, and no disparaging of Karen and the executive team, but sometimes it seems like we're presented material that could effectively be provided in even in some kind of monthly or periodic submission through emails, rather than just trying to fill an agenda and twice a month. And I also have some concern about the level of effort on the part of the organization and the team. It seems sometimes, it just seems like there's a lot of effort. Well, there is a lot of effort in this. Let's be practical and realistic. And the question is it necessary twice a month? I look at other organizations, Kern Cog, they have one meeting a month, and sometimes they don't even have those meetings if there's nothing for the agenda. And I attend regularly the high-speed rail committee meetings, authority meetings, a $68 billion initiative, and they meet once a month. And the organization, part of the point is, the organization is obviously doing an excellent job running the company. Do we need 2 meetings a month? Now, to continue this on, I'd like to say that rather than making a decision tonight, we would need to modify this. If we have a consensus, we would need to put it on to the next agenda for approval, because we need some new dates rather than existing dates. Open for discussion. Cindy?
I agree with you mostly, that I think that we can maybe look at the meetings throughout the year and see where we might look at
where they might be a little light, and maybe we can combine some meetings. I know some months there are a lot of things that do come up, and there are, I don't want to say time restricted, but things that, policies that come up that we have to renew that may have to be done at a certain time, or decisions that have to be made. So if staff could look at the calendar that you've given us now, I know it's kind of hard to look 12 months ahead and figure out what you think, but you guys are the experts. I mean, you guys know maybe at certain times of the year there's less time that needs to be spent on 2 meetings per month. So, I mean, Karen, I don't know what your feeling is on that, and or if we want to, if 12 months is too far ahead to look at, if we need to look at 6 months, or I don't know, what is your feeling on that?
Staff actually keeps a master board agenda schedule for what we see coming down the road, in part so we don't lose track of things that come annually. And we're typically busy in board meetings around May and June when we're doing the budget and having public hearings for the budget. But the balance of the year, you may recall this past year we only had 1 meeting in July and 1 meeting in August, because there really was not enough for the agenda for 2 meetings. There was enough. We always have things we can bring to the board, but there was nothing that was time sensitive that required the board to meet and make a decision. So we have a pretty fair idea of when things will be coming to the board. What it would require is staff to be more disciplined in terms of contracts and those kinds of things, to make sure that we get them on the agenda for the 1 meeting of the month, rather than letting them slip for a couple of weeks because we know there'll be another meeting in a couple weeks.
Is it harder on staff then to, I want to make it easier also for staff. I would have thought having 1 a month would have been easier, but if it's going to be harder on them to do that, then by all means, I don't want to put any more burden on the staff than there already is.
I wouldn't say it's harder, we just have to be more cognizant of the time, and certainly there's a lot less work. I mean, Sharon is always preparing an agenda or doing minutes from the last meeting. It's just an ongoing cycle where it would give some relief to staff to not have a meeting twice a month. And for example, I only take vacation when there's 5 Tuesdays in the month, because every Tuesday we're either preparing an agenda or having a board meeting. So there are some things that would make that attractive to staff as well.
One other point I'd like to make is that I actually like the public exposure for the organization. I mean, it's great PR, and it gives us the opportunity to discuss things and inform the community, and that includes the public comments. And my interest is not to just kind of build a wall from the public and dissuade people from coming if we only have 1 meeting. But on that note, we just last week established our new community advisory committee, which is an excellent forum for additional public comment for people. It's open to the public. So we're actually enlarging the opportunity for public commentary to the organization. Evelyn, do you have any thoughts on this?
I do. What is the history of our meeting twice per month?
Our enabling legislation does not dictate when the board should meet. It dictates a few things, like that officers would be elected on the first meeting after the first Monday of the month of January. But what it does say is that board members will be compensated $50 per meeting, not to exceed $100 a month. And I think that's probably where the tradition of having 2 meetings a month came from, was from the compensation for the board. And I think in the past, board members felt strongly that they wanted to make themselves available to the public if the public did want to come to the meetings and address the board. But typically, we have only a few members that come, and as long as the meetings are regularly posted and noticed, they would continue to have that opportunity.
Well, thank you for that. I don't see compensation for the board as being a compelling reason to have meetings twice a
Yeah.
month. I
Well,
think that's
yeah.
self-serving. In addition, would there be any restrictions, if we were to go to a once monthly meeting, would there be any restrictions on us calling an additional meeting if needed?
No, not as long as you notice it in enough time.
Okay. And then, can you foresee any unintended consequences of moving to a once monthly meeting?
I really don't believe there are any.
Okay. And if we were to move to a monthly meeting, are there items that would more than likely make for a longer agenda when we do have the monthly meeting? So are there items that could be handled on a consent agenda if we were to move to monthly meetings?
I think that's at the pleasure of this board. We try to structure the agendas so that the first items on the board are those things that require action. And then you'll notice there's usually 2 or 3 items that follow that are for information only. Those items certainly could be put, those information items could be put on a consent calendar, I would think. Action items can be put on a consent calendar too if you want to. It's a matter of how much discussion do you want to have in the meeting.
And I know that we are at a skeletal board membership now. I think if we were able to move back to some committee meetings, some of those items could be handled in
Absolutely.
committee.
Exactly right. The committees, and part of the idea with the committees is to structure them where we're just not on call anytime. We could plan a committee meeting, each committee meeting a fixed day of the month, and if we don't need it, we don't do it. But for board members, we could actually schedule our time. We would know when, if it's needed, our particular committee would meet in the month, if you wanted to do that. But talking about unintended consequences, I hadn't considered the second part of this thing. So if we go to one, I'm giving up my ice cream allowance for the month. So, but that's, I don't need it.
I do have one request though, is when the budget discussions are coming up, if maybe during that month we could have 2 meetings, just so that the conversation isn't lost in a month.
Yeah.
It's easy to do that, but when things like that are coming up, or when issues come up like your review, it's taken us how many meetings to get to the point that we're at right now. If we were at 1 meeting a month, it would have been into next year, So I think I would like us to keep in mind those certain issues that do come up, and maybe look at the calendar and say, well, this month we have to have 2, just to make sure that this moves in a timely fashion.
I would just comment that I think Chairman Hunter's point about the committees is really germane to what you just said, Cindy, because if the committees are doing their work and the other board members trust that the committee members have done their work, you should be able to move through the agendas more quickly and get things accomplished in a timely fashion.
And I think, I know this is down the road, but if and when, or if we do high-speed rail moves forward, I think there's gonna be decisions that the board is gonna need to be involved in, and it's gonna be kind of quick decisions that need to be made, and that we, granted, I'm sure that's not for down the road, but I'd like us to make sure that we look at that when we look at the calendar.
Well, and to Evelyn's point, we can call a special board meeting as necessary, or something like that. But on the point on annual review of Karen's performance and compensation, one of the contributing factors of this being drug out is we didn't have a quorum a couple of times.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's an issue, you know, if we go to once a month and we don't have a quorum, then we would need the flexibility to try and get a quorum during that month at another following week or something. So those are the considerations.
I have another item. Anticipating a fuller agenda, if we were to go to monthly meetings, would it be possible to get the agenda packet earlier than 4 days prior to the board meetings? Because I'd like the opportunity to be proactive and do some strategic, forecasting, etc. And I feel right now that all I'm able to do is to respond to the agenda items, and I'm not able to be proactive.
Yes, we could get the agendas out sooner.
Great,
Okay, so in order to vote on this, we need the new dates to next month, or can we vote on it tonight?
Do we table this, or? do we
Table it.
move
Well,
it?
you could vote on the idea of having one board meeting per month,
Okay.
accepting those times,
Oh.
possibly an evaluation, and then give instructions to Karen, which I think you already have, to have her go back and prepare a revised board meeting date for 2017,
Okay.
consistent with the conversation. Or it might be better just to table this and do it all in one fell swoop, so when you look, it's all of the action items pertaining to the board meetings to be found in one agenda and 1 minute state. That would be,
All right, yeah, the other final point from my perspective is, I'd like to do it on the third Tuesday rather than the first Tuesday of the month, because seem to, a lot of organizations choose the first Tuesday of first Monday of months or last. The middle of the month would be more agreeable to me anyway. I'm just one, I don't know about you folks.
I don't have a preference.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know,
Okay.
so.
How would that impact you?
The third Tuesday would be better, the third or the fourth would be better, because that allows us time to close the books for
Oh, yeah,
the
that's
prior
right.
month and
That's
prepare
right.
the financial statements to present to the board.
Okay. that's
Okay,
fine.
so we'll table this topic till next meeting, and if you'll prepare the new schedule for 2017, we can move on that. And the next meeting, what is it, December, whatever it is,
December 6th.
6th, okay, thank you. Thank you. Board. Delegated authority, Karen?
Thank you. I've actually asked Mr. Woods if he would speak to this
Okay.
item.
Good evening, Steve.
Good evening,
Welcome.
Mr. Chair, members of the board. Yeah, this topic's come up periodically at times about what would be considered a reasonable time for staff to approve claims as they come through, particularly workers' compensation claims. But traditionally, these are statutory issues that come up, but they're resolved fairly quickly. And as we discuss going to the board to do different changes, and especially now because we're considering a one meeting per month, this becomes even more pertinent for letting this, in this case, the CEO to approve claims no more than $25,000, which would be her authorization limit or his authorization limit. For example, under the procurement guidelines, the chair of the board, the CEO gets $100,000 unauthorized expenditures under her signature. before they come before the board. So this also it fixes some of the things we have as far as personnel goes and so forth. And it just makes things run a little bit more quickly, resolves claims more quickly, and really just takes care of things. So that's what we're proposing, is that.
Is this, and this is for personnel,
Compensation
not,
claims.
not the other
Not
type?
general liability claims, no. Not at this time, we're not proposing anything at this time.
Comments, questions?
I do. In the few board meetings that I have attended where there's been a workers' compensation case presented, the proposed settlement amount has been below $25,000.
Mhm.
And I know it's difficult to, give a blanket assessment of the dollar amount that the claims likely would be, but in the last few meetings, is that typical of?
Typically, depending upon how long the indemnity is, each claim seems to carry its own uniqueness in the sense that when an employee goes out, they have basically 30 days in which to be evaluated for purposes of workers' comp and a claim, whether it's a legitimate claim or not, and then thereafter, you go through the process of rehabilitation and get the employee back to work as quickly as you can. So you try to settle with it as quickly as you can so they can come back. I'm not sure I'm answering your question. However, we do also receive quite a few reports coming in, first aid reports and so forth, that, again, don't require a lot of expense.
Claims can vary widely in terms of the value of the claim. And we would propose to continue to bring large claims to the board for review. I know there has been a question over the past year among board members on some claims as to whether we should settle the claim or litigate. And so we would want the board to continue to give direction on those kinds of claims. We're talking primarily about the small claims that our third-party administrator has already done their best to whittle down to, given the workers' comp process, which is very structured, to the best settlement that we can get.
And by this agenda item, I assume that you're defining a small claim as something that's below $25,000.
Correct.
And this came up recently because one of the claims presented to us, if you recall, was the award was zero. I didn't see, did I say
That's
that?
correct.
That's correct.
It was zero, so it's, that's part of the consideration. Cindy, any
No,
comments?
Karen
she answered it.
Yeah. Many of these things are, I'm going to say, statutory in nature. They involve a certain limit in terms of what the state has allowed you to settle in terms of claims. It's just the extent of the damage that's caused. It's usually a percentage of that whole amount. So that's usually where the gray area is at, and usually it's not that much. So.
My experience has been, to be honest with you, I have not been able to contribute any value to reviewing these claims that are small claims of this nature, because all the due diligence has been done by the various organizations involved. So it's almost been a matter of rubber stamping, other than the point that Karen made about we questioned some larger claims because we felt there was some a need to go further than just approve a claim.
And to get back to your point about expediting board meetings with information, things that, if we get to this point, we don't need to bring this before the board. It helps process the time you need for other items on your agenda.
In action, so if the board does approve this resolution, it would not prevent staff from bringing a workers' comp claim that was unique circumstances, even if the value was under $25,000, that would be a discretionary call by the staff for those types of
Okay.
pending
That's a
claims.
good point. Well, I would ask, just for informational purposes, that we receive perhaps a quarterly report. I think you mentioned there's some kind of quarterly report that comes out of all settled claims and so forth. If that could be just.
Yeah, we can report how many claims have been settled, how many claims are open, what the value of those claims are.
All right. Thank you. Any other discussion? Cindy? No?
I was gonna move that we approve the resolution for delegating authority to settle workers' compensation claims not to exceed $25,000.
Okay.
Second?
And we have a second. All in favor?
This a roll call?
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Director Baldwin is absent. Director Hunter,
Yes?
Director Para,
Yes.
Director Youngspat.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. The paratransit vehicle purchase, Chris, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. In this budget cycle, we went ahead and budgeted to replace 5 of our paratransit vehicles. We went out to bid, received the same bids from the same vendors that we had a few months ago. And this time Creative Bus Sales came in on a lower bid of $96,038.15 per vehicle. They proposed a vehicle called the Star Trans vehicle. Just to give you some history with that. Star Trans is the largest, or Starcraft is the largest paratransit vehicle manufacturer in the United States. They acquired Star Trans. It was a separate company, brought them in-house, and put them on their production line. They upped their production from about 90 vehicles a week to 115. I spent quite a while on this bid because I haven't been impressed with the Starcraft product in the past, and felt that it was really a lighter vehicle that we should have. After doing some review on that, I've discovered they've incorporated some of Starcraft's manufacturing processes. It's passed all the testing, performance reviews, and then I started to contact other agencies that have taken on the Star Trans product. So in the end, I was kind of sold on it, talking to Orange County, which just bought 130 of them. They're taking delivery of them now. So they get some idea of the quality of that product. You know, I asked, well, what are you finding as far as defects when you're on your post-delivery? It's about 15 items they're finding, nothing major that I would consider. And the ones that they've already put in service were operating fairly well. So on that note, I would suggest that we go ahead and purchase those vehicles since they're far less cost. So that contract would be for $480,190.75 for 5 CNG paratransit vehicles.
And as you mentioned, this is a different vehicle than, or a manufacturer than you have in line now or in use now.
That is correct. It's still on the Ford chassis. It just has a different style body on it.
Okay. And then well, what I'm trying to ask, is there a lot of training because it is different with your staff, your mechanics? No. And then the spare parts, is spare part inventory included in this cost for a period of years?
No, sir, but they're very similar because they're on the same chassis.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
I have several.
Okay.
Chris, thank you for presenting this item. And again, this is part of my education as a new board member. So could you help me understand our bid process? When we put something out for bid, how widely are we advertising? And are we affording women and minority and disadvantaged business entities and veteran-owned businesses the opportunity to participate in the bid process?
Yes, it's posted nationally.
Okay, where? I mean, how?
It goes through most of the transit connections. There's Transit Talent. There's another one that we use.
Passenger transport.
Yeah, Passenger Transit. Thank you, Steve.
And,
Are-
go
Could
ahead.
I add to your question? Is there any emphasis put on the veterans and the women-owned businesses and so forth, or is that not allowed, or how does that work?
Guess I don't understand the question.
Well, in some instances, in some procurements, I believe with TurnCog, there's like
A ratio?
Oh, really? Yeah.
a 5%
Or you have to have targeted goals.
targeted goals, but a veteran-owned business or woman-owned might receive 5%, 5 points or something because of their category. Is there any of that sort of thing?
If they were, they would, there's forms inside the formal procurement they fill out. If they have any subcontractors, they're gonna fill those out and make sure that, but yes, we do give some extra
Okay,
consideration to
so
that.
the answer is yeah. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah. Thank you.
And Chris, you mentioned that the same companies as a previous bid were engaged this time, so we had no new bidders?
No.
Okay. All right. At your convenience, if you don't mind, I'd like to just spend some time with you so that I can understand the process and
Okay.
look at where we advertise, et cetera, et cetera. Great, thank you so much.
Okay. Cindy, any questions? Shall we move on this? I'll move for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Chris. very much.
Thank you.
Chris, I'm sorry, I have one more question. What's the life of these paratransit vehicles?
5 to 7 years. It's a combination of either, the 5 years or the mileage. Eventually, I've set one.
Great, and did I see that this comes from TDA funds?
Combination of federal and TDA.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. Do we have a current COG report tonight, Cindy?
Yeah, I have a short one. It was pretty light on the agenda. We had a workshop by Dr. Grammy, who came and did he initially did the economic
Impact.
report for us. He also went to KernCog and gave the same report. Was received with a little bit of skepticism on some of the numbers he came up with as far as environmental impact and the amount of money that the transit district puts back or gets back into the economy, because as I think one other board member stated, that it's kind of hard to quantify environmental dollars, I guess, but Chairman Hunter here sent me something that I think that was really interesting and really related to it very well. Besides that, there wasn't very much on the agenda.
Did the COG accept his report?
Yes. It was more of a workshop before the actual board meeting, so.
Yeah, from my perspective, everything's measurable. You can put a metric on it, anything and everything, and particularly in environmental impact, economic impact. This has been going on for several years, and so yeah, there was an article recently in the Fresno Bee that laid it out in fine detail, because they're doing some of that. A lot of work in that area up there, so if anybody's interested in it, I'd be happy to send it to them.
I looked at it.
Okay. All right, thank you, Cindy. High-speed rail, Karen.
Mr. Chairman, I have nothing to update the board on this evening, but I did make a note to myself to give Steve Milton a call tomorrow, because his 30 days in which he was to get me a schedule has lapsed. So I will call him tomorrow and find out where he is on providing that information.
Okay, could you remind us on what this, who he is and
He is, I've forgotten what his title is, project
Oh,
something. Works for the
Isn't the procurement guy or?
no, he's a like a junior project manager, but that's not his title.
It is now.
And
you mean within the high-speed rail authority?
yes,
Okay.
and he works out of the Fresno office, and he
yes.
visited me with
That's right.
their right-of-way
Mm.
person from Sacramento, and they were to get to me a list of tasks that needed to be undertaken for the high-speed rail authority to acquire our property and relocate us, as well as a schedule for doing that. And I've not yet received
I believe
that.
he works in Diane Gomez's.
Yes, he
office.
does.
Okay, yeah, I remember. Thank you.
I have a question. Have you seen the station area plan?
I have.
What do you think of that plan? I mean, was it what you thought the plan was supposed to be, or?
Well, it seems more like it's a plan to redesign downtown than it is to design the actual station area. But certainly the high-speed rail will impact all of the downtown area. So what I've seen is 3 scenarios, 1 to 10 years, a 10 to 20 years, and a 20 to 30 years. And in the 1 to 10 year, it assumes high-speed rail is not here yet. It really is in that mid-range one that assumes high-speed rail will come. Had a lengthy discussion with the city and the consultant about where our transit center should be, and recognizing that in the short term, it needs to be right where it is and not be moved in that 1 to 10 year time frame, but that when high-speed rail comes to town, we need to have facilities to be able to serve, to connect. It also, in the community meetings that I've been to and the stakeholder meetings I've been to, and I believe it shows up on the draft plan that they're working off of, that there would be a shuttle connector between the high-speed rail station and the Amtrak station that would connect to the transit center as well, wherever the transit center ultimately ends up being located. Because they're still assuming that the high-speed rail could be at either location.
In the future, would it be possible to have the firm that did that area plan, if they could come and give us
Sure.
a presentation?
Sure.
Good idea. Thank you, Cindy. All right, thank you, Karen. All right, we will be adjourning now into executive session to,
Well,
No.
actually,
I'm sorry.
all you really should do is we should just come back to item 10, the proposed.
oh, I see, so skip that
And we'll come back to it after closed session.
closed session. I
And
see.
if you want to take action, we do it at that time.
Thank you. So we'll go on to item 11, future agenda items and board comments. Cindy?
I just have one thought. Gina, I don't see Gina Hayden here today. There's a couple of online streaming things that the Bakersfield Californian does. One is, of course, the Scott Cox Show in the morning, and then on Fridays there's another one called the B-Town Beat that is kind of aimed more at kind of the millennials. And I'd like to know, if possible, if either they can contact either Gina contact them. I think it'd be a great place for maybe Emery and Ricky and maybe Gina to go on those shows to kind of talk up the transit and let people know what is out there as far as, especially the millennials, to give them the option of, maybe they could ride the bus once in a while. And I think especially that the B-Town Beat one is a good one for a target audience that we might like to reach. And it's online, and a lot of them get their news now online rather than regular television or whatever. So I think that would be a good outlet for us to go and try to reach some people.
That's a great idea. Lost my thought. All right, thank you. Evelyn?
I have two. Karen, I'd like to invite you to a cabinet meeting at CSUB at your convenience in the near future to discuss a U-Pass, Universal Pass or University Pass that we might be able to provide to faculty, staff, and students. And also, prior to that, I hope to be able to connect with Bakersfield College, and advocate that we both do that, and perhaps even with TAP, but certainly with Bakersfield College. And cabinet meets on Mondays from 9 to 12. But I'd have to get you a calendar of our upcoming meetings.
Okay.
I would also like to see if the board can revisit the practice of videotaping our board meetings. What is the cost? What is the benefit? What is our viewership? Does it make sense? Is it effective, etc.?
Okay, shall we put that on the next board meeting
Sure.
agenda? Okay. All right, thank you, Evelyn. Back to the point I escaped my memory, Cindy, is those programs would be a great forum to start promoting our upcoming business or bus rapid transit, or is that BRT? I don't know. I don't know if that's how far in the future it is, but it's one of our major initiatives coming up, and other kinds of activities. Karen?
Yeah, I think two things could be accomplished. One is to urge ridership today, but the other is to create a vision for what transit can be in the future.
There you go. Thank you. Much better said than my comment, but same. That's the point. But BRT is something like tangible you can really latch onto. I've seen it. I've seen the implementation of bus rapid transit in other communities. It creates. It's an opportunity to create a lot of new awareness and energy for public transit. My comment that I have tonight is I'm pleased that we launched the Community Advisory Council last Tuesday. Was it Tuesday or Wednesday? Either way. But Cindy and I represented the board at the meeting, and we had 20 representatives there. Very, very impressive people from the community of all ages and backgrounds. A lot of energy there. I'm really impressed and looking forward to this group participating and bringing us ideas and thoughts about improving the organization. I want to give a shout out to the new chair, vice chair, and secretary of the organization who was voted in at the last meeting. The chair is Rondell Ferguson. Did he just left?
He just left.
I'm trying to catch him. But congratulations to him. We have our vice chair, Tracy Mensch, and our secretary is Joyce McGee. So we're looking forward to participating in that with that group. And as I mentioned, that organization, those meetings are public. They're open to the public, so I encourage people to come in and just observe it, that's all. Or bring your issue to the group. All right, let's see, we're moving on. The CEO report. Karen, anything more tonight?
Actually, the only thing I had to report on this evening was to remind you that the meeting on the 15th of November has been canceled. So your next meeting after tonight is December 6th.
Okay.
And that will be the only meeting in December.
The rest of the year, yeah, all right. Unless we call a committee meeting of some urgency. Thank you.
Will that be after the, already after the Christmas parade?
Is
You
the
know?
Christmas parade on December 6th?
I mean, is it,
Oh.
that's the 6th,
Ah.
so the first Thursday, because it's usually the first Thursday or Tuesday of the month, I forget. I was wondering, are we gonna paint the bus and get
Yes,
our
we are.
employees to be able to
Yes.
be in the float again?
Yes, and in fact, we are this year going to paint a regular 40-foot bus and a GET11 vehicle as well this year.
Also, I had a question on the November free rides for veterans. Where are we advertising that at?
I'm sorry, Gina's ill. It was in our advertorial, I believe, that was in the Bakersfield Californian. It went out in the newsletter to community leaders. It's on the bus. There's a fare box flyer it's either a fare box flyer or behind the driver, one of those two places. There's information about that. We've gotten lots of questions from people, so I know the word is out.
Because the Veterans Parade is coming up next Friday,
Yes,
Veterans Day,
on the 11th.
Yes.
so
Veterans Day.
I don't know if it'd be possible for us somehow to advertise it there, but, yeah, just have Gina send me an email or something.
Okay.
And where we're advertising it. Maybe at the transit station or something.
The veterans, there's a veterans memorial here somewhere, is it there as well?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. That's it, Karen, thank you. All right, we will now go into executive session, and thank you all for joining us tonight.